It's not about ignorance, it's about future shock or loss aversion. You hold on to this analog past because you don't really know your role in the future. It's a natural thing, but it is a challenging one. You have tied everything to your title that you can't change the way that you work. I just don't care about my title or historical way of work. I'm like naturally lazy. Speed and certainty. That is what I'm focused on, not the process. We just get so hyper focused on the process of how we done things. And AI does not care about your process. It only cares about the outcome.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this podcast. I'm very excited to bring Greg Boone on today's episode. We haven't talked AI in a while, so we thought bringing an AI expert would be great. So Greg is the CEO of Walk West, and I'll let him do a little bit of introduction. But before we do that, as always, I'm joined by Jody Grundon. So Jody, say hi to the listeners.
Hello, listeners. Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've done this, but yeah, excited. Greg, why don't you give us a little bit of your background and kind of tell us what your expertise is in?
Yeah, absolutely. So Greg Boone, I'm CEO of Walk West, and I'm co-founder of RDU Labs. I focus quite at this intersection of marketing technology and AI transformation. I've been in the technology space since 1998 when I started at IBM as a software engineer. So my background and degree is in computer science, but I'm more on the business and marketing tech side of the house these days. I have 35 Gen AI certifications. I have all these certifications because I'm trying to understand every single role inside of a company and an industry and figure out how does it touch us all. Right now, MIT Executive Ed has a program, Leadership in the Age of AI, where they recorded me last year doing a transformation of Walk West in the Age of AI, and they're using it for their exec ed students. So every once in a while, I'll get someone from all over the country that'll reach out. Even today, it happened. Someone from New Jersey reached out and said, "Hey, I saw you in this. Could we connect?" And so I actually bring them on my podcast and just kind of talk shop a little bit and chop it up about AI. But I'm very passionate about the space, and I'm really here to try to help people understand and demystify what AI is and is not, and what you can do and how it can help elevate your quality of work, which then elevates your quality of life.
Hey, real quick, Greg.
Great introduction.
Yeah, you mentioned podcasts several times, even in the introduction. Why podcast? Why is podcast such a great medium to go and talk about AI or even really any other topic?
No, that's a great question, right? I got asked that a lot early last year, but I think a lot of people start to figure out. I think one of the things I was looking at a couple of years ago, I got deep into AI in the beginning of 2023. And I started to see how disruptive it could potentially be on things like the hourly rate from consulting businesses, right? My thesis working at the MIT program was around two things. It was around the hourly rate, and it was about the per seat license for software companies. And so I started to see how disruptive it was. And then by 2024, I tell people, I said in May of 2024, Google started to turn the lights off on companies when they started to go to the AI overviews. So I started to see the impact of what that was going to do to search. And by the end of 2024, I had interviewed almost 70 executives, I think 68 to be exact. And I would ask one fundamental question, which was, when you see an AI overview, how often, if ever, do you scroll past or click through it? And 98% of them said never. And so, you're in agreement, then AI picking the winners. So I started to ask and do a lot of deep research inside of Gemini and some of these other tools. Early days, I was one of those fools that paid for the premium subscription, and I said, I would ask Google Gemini, right, which is ironic. I said, if Google was to go away tomorrow, what would marketers do in 25? And the same things kept coming back and back over and over and over again, which was short form video, podcasts, PR, affiliate marketing, events. And so I actually formulated my own 4P strategy, which was around podcast, partnerships, PR, and publishing, right? And the whole point was the podcast was the perfect medium, right? Both video and audio. The other piece was, I think SiriusXM put out some data at the end of 24 after the election, and effectively said that podcasts had a 23x higher trustworthy rating than other mediums. 23x more. I was like, well, I need to go all in on this side of the house. Yeah, I go directly to the people. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's how I got there.
Oh, that's a great answer.
Well,
yeah, we've always been a fan of podcasts. We've been doing it for 2-3 years, and probably even longer than that. Well, actually longer than that. Probably like 5 years. Been doing it a long time.
Like 5 years.
It's been a great great avenue to get our message out, which I appreciate that, especially for you coming aboard and reinforcing that. And so that's great. So sorry to hijack you, JB, there, but I thought I'd grab that first
No,
question.
that's a really good question. It kind of leads to the question that you briefly touched on this, and you didn't use the term, but you talked about a little bit about the SEO for AI, or GEO as they call it. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and what your beliefs are? Because I've talked to like 5 or 6 or maybe 20 people about it, and it seems like everybody has different theories. And so I'm curious what your theory is on GEO and when it picks up.
Yeah, so I registered the domain of what is AEO, or answer engine optimization, in November of 2024. And
Okay.
this is when I was having these conversations with the executives. So this is in 2024. I said, this is a radical change that's going to impact a lot of people, because a lot of people don't fundamentally understand AI, and AI is probabilistic and not deterministic. Meaning, historically, all the software that we interacted with, every time you input something, you would get the exact same output. If you put the same input, you get the same output. That is not how AI works. You put that lens on top of how large language models, including Google, which has Gemini, which is now, and I kept telling folks, I said they're stair stepping you to AI mode, is what I kept saying in 2025. They're like, no, 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 Google will never change their business model. It's like, what choice did they have? As humans, we search for answers, not links. Like, it makes no sense. The experience that you would expect, the market sophistication gets to a point where if 800 million weekly active users were using ChatGPT, and now it's 900 million, are able to get a quick answer, right or wrong, it's irrelevant. They get able to get a quick answer. Google understood that had to be the default experience going forward, right? And so that goes back to my whole 4P strategy. So what I realized was that I always tell people that walk was, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to make sure you're seen, heard, and cited, CITED, by humans and machines alike for maximum results, right? Humans and machines alike is what I said at the beginning of 2025. And a lot of people around me thought I was crazy. They were like, what are you talking about? I was like, you have to understand that we're in an AI mediated world in which they're going to look to see not just what you say on your blog, right? You guys do a podcast, which is excellent from an AEO perspective in helping you. Well, first and foremost, you've been around a while, so you've produced content for a long period of time, which means that there's a likelihood that you were picked up during the training sets, right, in 2023 or 2022, 2023, right? But there's also the reality that because you have these multiple mediums, right, you can YouTube, so Google owns YouTube, so they pull a lot from YouTube. So if you take this video, put it on YouTube, have the transcript, it pulls a transcript that also feeds its way into how they're picking up. And so what I always would tell folks is like, you don't get to just say that you're the shit on your own blog anymore. You have to show up in so many different places, because if I was a large language model, I want to justify and say, hey, I want to validate this across their blog, across other people talking about them, across other social channels, right? And so that's the other reason why I'm so bullish on the podcast side. And then the third P, which was PR that we do, right? I was also trying to explain, I was like, you have to be cited. Someone else has to say that you're credible, right? Part of the reason why I want to be on these shows and why I love what you guys are doing is somebody else has to lift, and we have to borrow trust. And so I don't I don't get so caught up. I watched I tell people all the time, because I know a lot of technical SEO experts that came around to kind of this same kind of conclusion. I reverse engineered. I just asked executives who were buyers how their behavior was changing. And a lot of folks went in and they wanted the technical side of it. I was like, okay, the technical, that's cool, reinforcing that. But if the people that I know are already the ones, with the purse strings, if they already have moved away, that's what I need to focus on. So it's a long way to say that I believe in AEO, but I believe more in the things that you need to do to be seen, heard, and cited. Less about, I don't spend all my day trying to figure out, how many times I showed up in ChatGPT. Like, that's just not something I'm focused on. I'm focusing on the motions to actually give me a fighting chance.
Yeah, it's just kind of thinking through that. So in talking through that with accounting firms in general, because you talk in front of a lot of accounting firms, there's a lot of pushback, and then there's some curiosity there. What are you seeing that the accounting firms are looking at and saying, hey, this is something that great. It's more than just simply a note taker or something like that. It's more of it's getting more part of the organization going forward, or the account or the industry going forward for that matter. Versus those that really look at it like us, saying, hey, we've got to figure out the next best thing. How can we make it happen? what are the big things that we can do right? What chances can we take to make sure that we're doing things right, but not where the accounting world stops a lot of times is security being a big point part of that.
Yeah, I mean that's always a question that comes up: security and data. And when I was just on another panel earlier today, and the conversation I always tell folks. So one of the certifications I got is AI for cybersecurity. And one of the things we talk about is one, first and foremost, what you're really asking is what is your data policy, right? Like most organizations, so they say, well, how do I protect the data? I was like, well, what is your existing data policy? Like, how are you treating PII data right now? How are you treating that data, right? And then the other thing I always explain to folks, and sometimes people don't want to hear this, but it's a reality. And some of these cybersecurity courses will also tell you this is one, if you're a Microsoft shop, then it makes all the sense in the world to go with, say, like a Copilot from a foundational model perspective, right? Because you're going to have an enterprise account that's going to indemnify you and it's going to protect your data. If you're a Google Workspace, then using Gemini makes all the sense to have an enterprise account, right? There's also the reality that if you're using Google or Microsoft, they already have your data because that's your cloud provider. So, like the idea that you're protecting your data from the people that are holding your data in the cloud seems a little backwards. But I can understand the thought process there, right? The other part, though, that I really call folks out is you have to get formal training. Right. There's a concept of shadow AI, just like there used to be shadow IT, or, back in the day when they told you couldn't bring your mobile device to work. And then people are like, yeah, I wish you would try to take my mobile device from me. Right. If you don't train people, they're going to go out there and they're intentionally or unintentionally are going to misuse the technology, right? And so you have to start to show people how to use these things. Now, what I see a lot over the last several years is there's this jagged edge of intelligence that is AI, meaning that there are some PhD level things that it can do, and then the early days there were some basic things that it couldn't do. So like people would always ask things like, "Oh, it can't tell you," or they'll say, "It can't tell you how many R's are in the word strawberry." Like there's a lot of technical nuance as to that several years ago that's already been solved, right? But the reality is there was a lot of naysayers. There's kind of four levels of people and organizations that I see there: the AI never folks, the AI forward folks, the AI first companies like Walk West, and some what I try to position. Then they're the AI native, right? The companies that were built from the ground up, this fast acceleration. But what I tell folks all the time is you have to understand, like, the best thing that OpenAI ever did was, for AI adoption was make it feel like Google search. And then the worst thing that OpenAI ever did was make it feel like Google search, right? And so people use it as a glorified search engine. I said, I don't AI search, I AI instruct, right? And so I use it to my most recent AI certification a couple months ago was for AI for data analytics, right? I was trying to understand how do you manipulate spreadsheets? How do you manipulate data? How do you create visualizations? How do you do forecasting? And the amount of time drain and just the energy that is sucked out of individuals having to spend trying to do the next pivot table or the next this thing. And I tell people as knowledge workers, we spend 50 to 60% of our work week searching for things to do our job, copying and pasting and reformatting data. Almost 60%. Sales folks spend 70% of their time doing administrative tasks, right? With AI, if you learn how to use these tools, you can get almost 80% of that time back. Right. And so I show people how to do a month's worth of work in 10 to 15 minutes. And once you show them that, you can't unsee it. Right. And so whatever the misconception is or the misinformation about how you can use AI or what it can do, I try to break through that by actually showing them, not just talking about it in the abstract.
I think what you're saying is what I find amazing about AI is oftentimes it's just idea generation among people. And so the best places I've been is where it's just a group of 10 people, everybody's talking about what they're using AI for. And I'll walk out of that by hearing nine other people of how they're using AI. I'll walk out with like 30 new ideas. Like, oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do this. And so I'm curious with someone that has as much time spent in this area, what are a couple of things that you've seen recently that might generate ideas for other people who are looking for new ways to use AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of visualization. Even my chairman, he just came back from a Harvard course over a 2 day period, and he didn't fully understand some of the things that he could actually do. Right? We kind of put ourselves in this like mental model where people say things like, "Oh, it's a smart intern." I was like, if you call it a smart intern, you box it in. Like I don't know any intern that can do deep research, ingest 10K, produce all this visualization, create a website in the moment, right? Create an app if I want for my phone all at the same time in under an hour, right? And so I see so many different ways that you can go from ideation and research all the way down to some type of product or some type of visual or something I can put in my hand or on my phone to show me, right? I have a board meeting tomorrow, right? I'm showing things in so many different form factors now. I can show them like, hey, yeah, I jokingly call it executive vision charades. There always used to be this time when you have a conversation and you're trying to talk to someone about building something. It's like it sounds like it's two words, and then 6 months later, nobody's happy, right? And for me, it's like now I go from, and my chairman knows this, so he'll I don't think I think he's testing me sometimes. He'll just say, "Hey, an hour for a board meeting, can you add this thing into?" I'm like, "Come on, man!" Like he's like, "I know you gotta know how to use the tools, right?" So I use a combination of like tools like I can use Claude or ChatGPT, but then I also use like harness tools or apps like GenSpark or Manus. Or yesterday, I spent 5 hours vibe coding for a nonprofit kind of somewhere between kind of a fundraiser and we're trying to bring a marketing group together. So there was 6 different teams. I was a solo team, but I created like 4 different applications. I even created a comic book for this nonprofit, right? All within 5 hours, and we presented it in those cooking shows, right? I was like, I had 3-course meal, and then I had to kind of plate it and show everybody at the end. And so I think, but once you start to think about how do you move from just showing something in a spreadsheet to actually helping someone visualize and understand and tell a story, right? You move beyond just putting the comments next to all of the budget analysis, right? Like I appreciate the comments. Now bring this to life for me, right? Show me some trend lines year over year. Now slice it and dice it. And you don't have to say, oh, this is going to take me 4 hours or I'll be back to you in 2 days. Like you can ask the machine to do it and then you validate it and check it with your domain expertise.
Yeah, I think putting yourself in that reviewer role is critical when it comes to AI. And I know I try to do as much of that as I can, where I give an idea, and a lot of times it's just like verbal diarrhea, just typing thoughts out as fast as I can, and like, all right, put this into really good thoughts, and then I review that afterwards. So I spend a lot of time doing that in AI. But I think the kind of the next level stuff you're talking about is really important. I've done a lot with images. I've done nothing with video. That's probably the next step that I need to step into. But I am curious for you, Jody. I know you're constantly playing with AI. What's the last couple of cool things you've done for work inside of the AI things you're using?
Oh, I use AI all the time. So, every morning I get up, I put my health information from my Garmin watch into it. So I slide that information there, ask it to do a recap for me, kind of give me an idea, give me an analysis, how I'm doing. Then I also put some of my financial information in there and do the exact same thing. And then I write a personal summary of, hey, things I'm going to do today, what I did yesterday, what's going on tomorrow. And it puts it in a really nice recap. And then I have to summarize the entire thing and score me. Hey, how am I doing towards my financial goals, my health goals? My personal goals, what's my attitude, today? What do I need to change, today that you see in there that, to help me out going forward. And it's just kind of funny that I've been doing it for a long time, for probably 6 months. And AI has improved so much over that period of time that, whereas before I had to correct a bunch of things. No, I didn't say that. I didn't mean that. Now it's just picking things up and bringing things in, all over the place. It's been really helpful for me, just to kind of get a better insight of, my own self, not necessarily work related. It does relate to work, but it really kind of helps me, just get a better picture of where I'm at and where I'm going and justify things I've done and just kind of be like a sounding board, like my alter ego back over here, bouncing ideas off. But not 100% sure how great that idea is, Greg. Kind of curious on what your opinion is on that, but that's how I've been using it a lot
I
lately,
think
and it's been, me.
I find that a lot of people, once they start to understand that it can be this thought partner for them, they start to view it differently, right? It's that anthropomorphism, if you will, where people start to like. There's a moment last year. I was literally was going down a rabbit hole doing some things for like 14 hours on a weekend. My family was out of town, and then I found myself on Monday saying, like, yeah, I was talking to such and such. And once I realized I was talking to myself into AI, but it like I got so lost in the sauce. I was like, "Oh yeah, that reminds me." I was having a conversation. I'm like, I was not having a real conversation, right? But it felt real. But when I use it all the time as a thought partner, both in I try to do things for my family and for my kids. My wife, she was um she was a little bit you know not really into it, but she listened to me a lot of
Right,
a lot of times on talking about this. But what she started to find was she likes to paint and do a lot of arts and crafts. She
Uh-huh.
uses it as like a reference. So just last weekend, my son turned 7. He wanted to have a surf themed birthday party. She used ChatGPT to create an image of like a cartoon wave. Took that image, put it down, and used that to then hand paint art in the room. We made the basement look like he was at the beach, right? So she kind of reverse engineered and used it that way. But what I find is once people realize that, now has her talking to some of her friends that own small businesses, and now she was like, "Hey, I can actually help you," because she now better understands that there's not a lot of limits as it relates to how you can use AI, right, for that thought clutter piece. A lot of people just don't fundamentally uh, they don't understand. Again, it goes back to that smart intern piece. They view it a certain way and they don't even realize what you can do. Like, the moment I had like an HR professional, right, do like 2 months of work in 2 hours, right? They were like, "Whoa," like, because people will come in and they say, "I use AI all the time," and then they'll go through one of our trainings or see me kind of wield the tool, and they're like, "I don't use AI like that." Like, I you know, like, and there's this, like, this dichotomy of this there's this huge gap, guys. Like, I was doing an AMA keynote, I don't know what day it is anymore. I guess it was last week. Maybe this week. I don't know. I do a lot of speaking
Mhm.
engagements, right? And what I was saying is,
Mhm.
75% of marketers say that they use AI, but then less than 35% use it outside of what I would call AI basic, meaning they're not using anything agentic. They're not using any type of additional platforms that have these AI agent type capabilities in it. And so there's such a wide gap. So someone may be using it to summarize emails, or they may be using it for very basic things, and then you show them how they could do a lot of their work, and they're like, there's 2 points. There's the excitement in some, and then there's that fear, right? And that fear starts to settle in, right? Because they're like,
Mhm.
"That man just did my work in 10 minutes. What am I supposed to say?"
Right.
Uh,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that kind of leads me at a question for you.
So,
Because we've been applying it towards our CFOs and kind of getting a better understanding of how our CFOs communicate with our team. Because, we'd love to say that, hey, we are 80% structured and 20% snowflakey when it comes to giving advice or consulting. But a lot of times when we look at it, we don't really know because we're not on those calls. And Jay, if you can kind of like talk a little bit about what you've been doing, what you've been kind of spearheading, I'd love to get Greg's opinion on that.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with a tool called Decoder AI? And it's by other tools that do similar stuff. But basically, what Decoder does is it helps you build your own agents and bots. And so, what I've been working with Decoder on is we've been recording our meetings for probably the last 5 years. And so, you can imagine that's a lot of data that's sitting in all these transcripts and all these recordings. And so, what Decoder has done is they tap into all of our meeting recordings. And every Sunday, me and another one of our employees who oversees the people as well, we get emails summarizing our clients, what the information they're talking about. Are we asking the right questions? Are there training areas we should be working on? And they're very specific reports that we get each Sunday. So that way we can kind of keep our hands on what's going on in the business. And I can tell you we've been using these reports for about a month now. And the conversations that I have with my CFOs are so much better because I have more detail. I have direct questions I can ask them. And we're also catching things that we never would have caught before, where we have a watch list that we keep an eye on and people have to self-report into the watch list. But now we're getting that information, I would say 3-4 weeks ahead of time before the person actually reports it. Like, hey, they're asking a lot of questions about their cash situation and they're asking about bankruptcy. Maybe we should have them on our watch list, those type of questions. And so the information that we're gathering from just taking our meeting notes and having a trained bot give us the right reports each week on that. And then the other cool part about what Decoder does is not only do we get the reports, it also creates an AI agent I can interact with after the fact. So if there's a one little comment in there about, oh, in this meeting this was mentioned and I want more information on it, I can pop right into that agent and be like, can you tell me more about this one meeting that Jody had with the client? And I can kind of interact with the AI bot about that very specific one issue that came up in that report. So that's just one way we're using Decoder. This quarter, I have 6 reports I'm trying to create and 6 different agents I'm trying to create that can help us really understand our information and our people better. But it's been a fun project, and yeah, it's been a whirlwind for me to learn about too.
I mean, I think that's a perfect example. When you start to show those agentic capabilities, like I use Granola to transcribe a lot of my notes, and then
Mm.
I do the same thing. I said, then I can have a conversation with Granola after the meeting. So I have a
Mhm.
meeting, and then I have another meeting to kind of like
Yep.
go through it. But then also I take that transcript, just like you said, and I can run that through any type of analysis. So what AI is really good at is sentiment analysis, right? And I always try to get
Mhm.
that to your point, it teases out. So a lot of salespeople have loved it. A lot of salespeople have gravitated towards the AI because they realize I can do much better research and understand. Now, some of them also it reveals. We always say AI will reveal you, right? And
Yep.
so there's the hey, the salesperson said it was a great call, and then the sales leader says, "Let me see your transcript," right? And they're like, "Whoa, I mean, it was an okay call, right?" Because the AI is going to pull the sentiment out, and they're like, "Hey, these are red flags, or these are opportunities that you missed." But if you're okay in being vulnerable, which is part of
Yep.
the challenge, a lot of what I have a book coming out in September called AI at the Speed of Trust. In this, what I try to get across to folks is the technology is ready. The challenge is our mental models aren't right. And I got to be
Mhm.
honest with you guys. I do a lot of speaking on this, and the least interested room I spoke in last year was a room full of CFOs, and I was like, "Oh no." I said, if you think AI can't do numbers, like, like, I was like, oh no, I don't know what's happening. Now, afterwards, though, I did have about 10 or 15 people come up to me and they say, well, I'm in M&A or I'm in this thing or I'm in this type of startup. Like there was a big difference. And what
Yeah.
I also found was that there were managers in the room, and it was still a moment in time last year. It was mid through last year, probably like August, where folks
Mhm.
didn't want to raise their hand, and they were like I've never been in a room when I asked something about AI and people started looking towards their bosses. Like I was like, oh, this is not like you have to empower people to give them. So I love what you guys are doing. I think it's an excellent use case. That is way beyond AI basic, right? You're
Mhm.
taking this artifact, you're using some agentic workflow to then create some deeper insight to better understand your audience. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, because I used to get asked all the time, it's like, well, I feel like it's not humane to use AI. And I was like, how is it humane to spend 50 to 6% of our time looking down at our computer, searching for things to do our job, copy and pasting, reformatting data? Right. I was
Mhm.
talking to a younger person. She was in my meeting. We were having a one-on-one last year. And I said, do you realize why I'm not actually writing notes in the book and I'm actually engaging with you while you're writing? He's like, no. I said, because I'm using an AI transcriber, right?
Yeah.
So that I can have a thoughtful conversation in real time, right?
Mhm.
You're getting every third word that I'm saying because I appreciate you taking the notes, right? But this thing over here will do that. Let's have a real conversation, right?
Mhm.
And so I think it's a beautiful use case, and a lot of people do that. And I would take it to the next evolution and start figuring out how are you going to how do you use it to create either new like I tell people, I was like, you AI will help you create not just efficiencies, but new business models, new offerings. We're putting together new
Mhm.
offerings for our clients now that I've never been able to do before because it was either cost prohibitive or time prohibitive, right? And AI gives you that speed and optionality. So now I'm able to offer greater value in a shorter period of time. Now that comes with other challenges, which is how do you price that, right? How do you because we've all kind of base ourselves on an hourly, especially if you're in consulting or agency model. And that was something I've been fighting with boards for the last several years. I was like, this is not going to make sense anymore, guys. Like, what am I supposed to tell these people? It's $5,000 an hour. Like, what do you want me to tell them?
Yep. Yeah, we
Yeah,
got
it's
rid of
done a
the hourly
remarkable
rate.
job with it. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a remarkable job
Yeah.
with the training insights, which I think could also lead to those new product insights. So a lot of the training insights it gives me, it's like your team does a really good job explaining financial statements, but it doesn't do a good job explaining what that means for the future. I'm like, okay, that's something I need to like lean into. But I think I also can lean into that of like, you know, this month 25 clients have asked this question. You guys don't provide that service. Maybe this is a service you should think about providing. And so I think just really using it for those type of
Yes.
insights, and even with our sales team we're using that as well. Is like it's very easy for a salesperson. With Jody, both and I are salespeople, but if you don't know why a client turned you down, it's really easy just to check the boxes. Oh, it was price point, right? You check that box that it was our price was too high. But I think using AI to analyze the calls and the follow-up calls and the emails to say, okay, really, why do you think this client did the prospective client didn't select us? Was it really price, or is it something else? And I think that's something else we're the path we're kind of going down.
Yeah, I mean, it's great at like I said, I always remind people it's great at sentiment analysis, and the 3 of us can ask the same type of question, right? And it may look radically different on its face, but AI will
Mhm.
then, reduce it down to its sentiment. And so the same thing happens a lot of times. People don't pick up on the right cues or clues inside of a conversation. And then to your point, they think, oh, it was about price, it was about, length of engagement, whatever the thing was. And it turns out it could have been something very different that you could have either mitigated or you can create some additional product or service on the other side of it. And but you just have to be thoughtful enough to make sure that you're using the tools consistently, right? And there is a certain
Mhm.
amount of data that makes sense, right? Like if you were talking about, you had months or you've had a bunch of data in different disparate places, and that's also a good use case for AI, unstructured data, PDFs,
Mhm.
meeting notes,
Yeah.
recordings, right? Being able to ingest that. And that's where too we have to break our mental model because a lot of people think of data, they're only thinking of whether it's in a spreadsheet or in a database, and all of it is data, right? And it can be consumed easily. A picture, snap a picture, you can load up a PDF, right? But you have to change the way that you work. And one of the quotes I always say, and I always, it's kind of a mixed bag. I've been saying it for a while now, but I always use this Upton Sinclair quote from 1934, which is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it. Right. And I always tell folks it's not about ignorance, it's about future shock or loss aversion. Right. This idea that you hold on to this analog past because you don't really know your role in the future. Right. And it's a natural thing, right? But it is a challenging one. So we pair things to our old business models, our old job titles. I'll be in Bogota, Colombia next week speaking. And I always tell people when I was in Costa Rica in December speaking, I said, when I go to these other countries, when I meet people, they ask me about my family, what I like to do for fun, what I like to eat. I said, you ask somebody in the US and the first time you meet them, what's the first thing they ask you? What do you do for a living? I was like, you've tied everything to your title that you can't change the way that you work. Right.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
the thing that keeps getting people is our emotional identities. I just don't care about my title or historical way of work. I'm like naturally lazy. Like I want to, how do I get to the outcome with great
Mhm.
quality and certainty? Speed and certainty. That is what I'm focused on, not the process. And then there's just so many, especially in the, and I'm not trying to badmouth marketers. I'm just simply trying to call out a reality is we just get so hyper focused on the process of how we done things. And AI does not care about your process. It only cares about the
Right.
outcome. And that is the thing that's been the most challenging when I talk to folks.
Yeah, good stuff. So we're kind of to the end of the episode here, so it's time for me to ask the fun question. And so, Greg, you kind of talked a little bit about your speaking experience. I know Jody and I both do public speaking as well. So I want all three of us to give our best tip we ever heard about public speaking and how to survive standing on the stage with other people watching you. So Greg, I'm going to start with you since you've done it most recently. And so what's your one tip you would give anyone that wants to get into public speaking?
I always, the one tip I try to tell people is only go out there and talk about something you know and are passionate about,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like if
Love that.
I've seen
Mhm.
people just kind of fumble around and people would say to me, they're like, how did you know to say this or that? And I was like, because it is something I truly believe and I put in the work. Right. The other thing I would also say is preparation matters. Right. I say the same things over and over and over again because I'm trying to make sure that I reinforce the right things and don't get into a situation while I'm rambling. And the last thing I'll say, someone that I admired, Jess Ekstrom, she's someone that does a lot of public speaking, and we actually produce her podcast. And she said, always be a lighthouse. If you're being a lighthouse, if you're shining the light on something and not on yourself, right? Then it doesn't matter what happens. So I was like, as long as I leave the stage feeling like I tried to shine a light on something, I don't care if the light ever shined on me. Then I feel like I did an okay job.
Wow, those are awesome tips. What about you, Jody?
Yeah, mine's very similar. I've been speaking for geez a long time, 10 plus years, and I'd say the biggest thing, or I think what attracts a lot of folks to hearing me talk would be, and I'm just guessing, of course. I don't have I'm not can't get in the brain, but the transparency that I deliver, and so and what I mean by that, I never try to sell me. I sell the ideas that I give. I want to present to them all the facts and here's how we do it. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't work. Let them be the judge of whether or not they want to take it and go with it. But really get in the details because a lot of people, they hear so much about the theory of things. It's when you get into the how of things, that's when they really start, taking note. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And after our talks, and you probably hear it all the time too. After our talks, people will come up to us. He goes, "Why do you share all the secret sauce?" And it's like, why not? Or not. There's a blue ocean out there. I mean, I hope you guys learn from what we've done and improve on it, and then someday maybe I'll hear you talk and I can get ideas from you and improve on things. And I just believe that that's just really how how people should be, and instead of being guarded about their secret sauce, let's just share it with everyone and help them figure it out. Now a lot of times they're not going to be able to figure it out, and that's when they'll come to you, and then maybe they'll engage you to help them get through that process. But the idea is just simply being vulnerable and just being sharing. I think that's really the key over the years, and I think that's what draws people to talks that we might give.
Hey,
Yeah,
that's what
no,
AI needs. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, it's okay. It's
that's
good.
what AI leadership needs. Like in my 4P process, my second P is partnership. And in beginning of 2025, I did my ins and outs. And the first one was I was going to support more women leaders publicly. But the second one was I'm not going about business alone again. It's like partnership
Mhm.
is the new growth skill, if not survival skill. And I said, this whole idea of everybody being crabs in a bucket, pulling each other down. I was like, I don't even understand what is happening
Right.
right
Mhm.
now. So I love that. Like, and I'm also the type of person my team used to say, it's like, hey man, you always start with the nightmare fuel because I tell people all the challenges up front, but then I give them the actionable things that you could do. Right. And so
Yeah,
I say
yeah.
I go from the scaring to the caring. All right. And
Mhm.
so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you
No,
said that, all I thought was like partnership, man. That's my favorite P.
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it's crazy the amount that oftentimes when we talk to clients, we talk with prospective clients, the fact that like we can pull someone into the room that is that partner of like, okay, I don't know anything about that topic, but I do know this person. Like that's some of the best things we do for our clients is stuff we don't actually do. We just bring a partner in. So I think that's really good advice. And obviously I'm on video here with two great public speakers. So I'll just give very basic advice. My advice that works for me really well, and something I learned in college is like the power of oxygen. And so before I go on like any speaking engagement or go up on the stage, I always take like 5 deep breaths and just bring oxygen into my body. And like it's crazy what it does for my nerves, what it does for my speaking speed. Because as you guys can probably tell, I speak very fast. But when I get on stage, I don't do that anymore because I take those 5 deep breaths, and something that simple just really makes me way more comfortable on stage. And so that's something that I learned in college that I've started doing in the last probably 6, 7 years that have made public speaking a lot easier for me.
Yeah, Greg, you should have seen the first time that Jamie spoke. It was pretty. They're at a Drupal event, and he's in front of a bunch of coders and people, agency owners, that sort of thing. And he gets up there and starts speaking, and I write at that time I had paper. I wrote on a piece of paper real quick and gave it to him. And what did it
Breathe,
say, Jamie?
slow down. Slow down. But Jerry's only telling half the story here. That was like the fourth or fifth time I presented, and the first 4 times were pretty good. But on this one, 2 minutes before going on stage, Jody's like, I think I'm just going to sit on the sidelines on this one, let you do the whole thing. And so that was why I treated that one a little bit differently, because it was my first time doing the presentation all by myself. And Jody told me 2 minutes before going on stage that I was doing it all by myself. So a little different story than
Wait,
Jody told.
so I do have I do have a security blanket of sorts in my co-host of my podcast, and I used to go on stage a lot. And she's a great speaker, Erica Rooney, and but yeah, and then she was like, "Hey, you need to go fly a little birdie, right, and go do." But I always tell folks I played a little bit of D1 basketball and baseball, and I was a point guard in basketball and a pitcher in baseball, and
Mhm.
when you're in the middle and you can't hide and everybody is around you looking at you, right? So for me, it's like I go on a stage and I say, there is no stress in this, right? Like,
Yeah,
hey,
it's a little different.
I can't,
Yeah.
I can't turn the ball over, but I do like the power of oxygen, right? And I did have a coach, my coach when I was a freshman. He said me, he said, son, I need you to breathe. I was like,
Mhm.
all right.
Yeah, yep. I am thinking of it because of basketball. So my son took over the starting point guard role this year for our team. He's a sophomore, and there were a couple times in those first couple games where we had to like during a free throw, I'd be like, Alex, take some breaths, dude. Settle down. You're all right. So yeah, I'm with you.
All right.
Cool. So let's get some final thoughts here. I'd love to. I'm going to start with Jody, and then Greg will give you the last word. But Jody, any final thoughts on this episode?
No, I think this episode's great. Greg, you've been a great a person that be involved in this episode. I'd like to know, if you've talked a lot about you get the education and the training, just exactly what I talked about. Why would somebody come and hire you, and how would they get a hold of you, and what could you do for those folks?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn, Greg Boone, GregBoone. I trademarked AI Serious, so that's my name on X. Dr. Westman at MIT thought it was hilarious. I said, look, I need my team to be AI curious because I'm AI serious. I was trying to prove a point to them, right? It was a bit costly of a point, right? But yeah, so I would say LinkedIn is probably the best way.
Mhm.
Um, Again, walkwest.com, you can find me there as well if you want to know more about what we do. And yeah, I'm just here to help, man. I tell people all the time when I post stuff, I say, I'm just here to help. And like you guys, I say I say the quiet part out loud, right? And then whoever wants to listen or understand, that's fine, right? If you don't, that's fine. You don't have to listen to me. That's cool, right? But if you want to, you want me to help, and I will break it down and I'll say it in the most basic terms, but then I will actually show you, right? I won't just talk theory as we said earlier. I'm going to make it applicable to what you're doing, your role in your organization, your industry.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I agree with Jody. This is a great episode, and I know I learned a lot and have a lot of notes and some things I'm going to go back and be like, oh, maybe I should try this. So really, really appreciate you coming on, and yeah, I'm glad the listeners can know how to get hold of you, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.